If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
I want to shift gears here. I want to talk about the full schedule that we now have out for this series, Knicks and Cavs. The series, we now know how this will work beyond just game one. We'll talk maybe a little bit about why it took so long to get this schedule out. But so we have a game two, which is set to take place in Cleveland. That will be on Tuesday. And then the series will then shift gears to New York. So next Friday, April 21st, the Knicks will be playing the Cavs at Madison Square Garden. Game four will be on Sunday. Game 3 at 8:30. Game 4 at 1. Then for the rest of the series, the times are TBD because I think the NBA wants to kind of maximize the time slots once we get beyond the first 4 games. So we don't know the times of these games, but we do know that Game 5 will be in Cleveland on April 26th. Game 6 will be in New York on April 28th. And if there is a Game 7, that will be April 30th in Cleveland. So that is the breakdown for how the series will work in regards to the schedule. Tommy, any major takeaways from how the NBA broke down the schedule for this particular series between the Cavs and Knicks?
Yeah, it's interesting that there's that with that length of time in between games, particularly game 2 to 3, Tuesday through Friday, and then game 4, Sunday through Wednesday. So there's a good amount of time there, which is not uncommon for a postseason series, but certainly notable as teams make the transition and fans make the transition from a game essentially every other night, or 2 games in 5 nights, 3 games a week, whatever. The Knicks, the first 5 games of the series are essentially over 11 days. So certainly more time than we're accustomed to. And I guess you could look at it at a couple different ways. From the Knicks perspective, if Julius Randle isn't ready for game 1, it sounds like he's trending in that, that he will be ready. But if he's not, that this gives him some extra time to rest, recuperate if he is available for game 1. And just, assuming he's going to deal with some soreness after game 1, game 2, he has a little bit of extra time. And obviously, as we know, Knicks played their starters a ton of minutes. Brunson, although he had some rest at the regular season, that certainly doesn't hurt. IQ, Hart, Grimes, all those guys played heavy minutes, so that could be a benefit. But I think it does benefit the Cavs more because, as we talked about with our previous guest, the Cavs are going to really have to rely heavily on their first 5 or 6 guys. And that's assuming Okoro's healthy. If Okoro's not healthy, then they're in real trouble because the advantage the Knicks have in terms of depth and their reserves increases exponentially if Okoro's not available. But again, even assuming Okoro starts and plays, his 30, 35 minutes, whatever the case might be, they're going to have to lean really heavily on their main guys, which is something we'll talk about why they have to stay out of foul trouble. The Cavs backcourt in particular. So I'm speaking specifically. So I think there's 2 different kind of ways to look at it. But I think in terms of the schedule and the spacing, I think it probably benefits Cleveland more than the Knicks.
Yeah, I do think that the long layoff that the Knicks will have, 2 days from games 1 and 2, 2 days, Tuesday to Friday for games 2 to 3. I think that should benefit them. When you talk about Randle having the injury that he had and the inability to stay healthy, I do wonder if having to play on Saturday as opposed to Sunday makes them decide maybe we'll hold Randle since we have up until Tuesday to get him ready. That could be a decision that they have to make. But yeah, the Cavs being the team that will probably play the shortest rotation, which is ironic considering you're talking about a Knicks team coached by Tom Thibodeau. But I think the Cavs very well could go to 8 men, maybe even a majority 7 guys, really, with the core 4 and most of that starting line kind of playing the 40, 42, 43 minutes in these games. It's pretty nice that they were able to get these days that they'll have so many games, which the first 4 games they'll have 2 to 3 days in between. So what was the deal with why we couldn't get this schedule earlier? I mean, I know it sounds a little selfish, but look, I'm looking at the ticket prices. They're scaring me to death, but I'm considering trying to get to one of these games. I don't know what the situation is going to be in terms of whether they're playing on next week with the Knicks. So is there any word from the NBA as to why it took so long? I know that maybe they wanted to get more clarity in terms of what the planned tournament was going to be, but it felt like regardless of what happened with the play-in tournament, the teams that had already qualified had their matchup set. We should have had the schedule out regarding what it was going to be, because I didn't know until literally yesterday whether or not I could actually find a way to get to one of these games next week.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't seen anything. I do know that there have been some rumblings in and around the league that particularly the top seeded teams, the number one seed in both the East and the West, are a little bit of a disadvantage because they're not know who they're playing up until 2 games before the game actually tips off. Whereas obviously the Knicks and the Cavs have known about they're going to be facing each other for, even before the regular season started, like 14 days ago. And then the second seed Celtics knew that they were going to play the 7-8 winner was decided on Monday or Tuesday. So they had a good 5 days to prepare. So there is some talk there that that's something they may want to adjust. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they figure out a way to short time of playing indoors and the regular season on a Friday or Wednesday.
Right, exactly.
That's have the play in weekend and then start the playoffs that following Saturday.
Yeah, that feels like that would make more sense, because as we saw that the play-in tournament has helped avoid tanking to some degree, but then we saw Dallas Mavericks kind of just buck that system. But it feels like that Sunday ended up not being quite as dramatic as I think the NBA would have hoped when they kind of set the schedule up. The idea was we'll have Sunday, everybody playing all essentially at the same time. A lot of these games were early afternoon games, so everybody be tuned in to see what was happening. And what we had was, a national TV game where the Hawks are playing the Celtics. I'm watching, JD Davison getting minutes for the Celtics, and I'm looking at these rosters. I'm like, man, I don't know who half these guys are. So it will make sense. I feel like if we just put the regular season ending on a Friday night for all the teams, have these playing games that we'll talk about in a second that have been entertaining, put them in a prime slot on the weekend, Sunday afternoon, Sunday early evening for the first games. Then maybe you decide them on a Tuesday. And then at that point, all the teams kind of have a full sense of who they will be playing. And then you get to that weekend, and then you don't have this disadvantage that some of these 1 seeds are going to have not knowing who they're playing.
Yeah, I think the league was hoping that they set it up kind of like how the World Cup would, in the final games before the knockout stage, where each game starts at the exact same time. So you can't, in the Premier League, you can't force a tie and just play for tie. All you need is a tie, but you have to win, and there's uncertainty going on. So I think the NBA was hoping that would be the case, but it didn't pan out that way. So yeah, and plus, it's not like they get crazy good ratings on a Sunday afternoon. If it was on a Tuesday night TNT, end of regular season game, the best night in regular season, last 20 years or so was the night Kobe scored. Today is actually it was April 13th.
Yeah.
How many years ago? 5 or 6 years ago, when Kobe went for 60 and the Warriors won their 73rd game. I believe that was a Wednesday night. So they had, it's not like the NBA has always ended the season on a Sunday. I think because of the play-in situation, they were hoping, and if things had kind of, few different turns, if the Mavericks inexplicably don't sit Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, we have a lot more of that. But it didn't pan out.
Yeah, Knicks and Cavs, game 1 set for Saturday. You have game 2 set for Tuesday. Games 3 and 4 Friday and next Sunday at the Garden. So if you're looking to get tickets to those games, April 21st, game 3, that's an 8:30 start, a little bit of an odd start there, but that is the time for that game. And then Sunday is an early afternoon slate. That is a 1 p.m. start. So the Friday to Sunday is the quickest turnaround that you'll see. A night game that's actually later in the evening than most games, and then a Sunday afternoon game.
The Knicks get one of the first 2 in Cleveland. That Friday night Garden crowd will be so loud. I mean, it will be as loud as you heard any sports arena in a long time. If the Knicks can get a little life, a little buzz in that building by stealing the first 2 in Cleveland.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.